Hello, welcome to UniTeaTime. I'm Pauline, Deputy Manager of Unity Café.
And I'm Carl, the Catering Manager. So today we're making a chicken pie with a creamy tarragon sauce. For this you will need 8 ounces of plain flour, 8 ounces of self-raising flour, 8 ounces of margarine or butter, water to bind it together, and a pinch of salt. For the sauce, it's 4 ounces of butter, 100 millimeters of single cream, 600 ml of milk, 2 tablespoons of plain flour, 1 teaspoon of tarragon, 1 pinch of parsley, a dash of lemon juice, and half a diced onion and chicken stock. And of course the chicken, which today we're using 800 grams of.
So first of all, I should be putting the flour, both plain and self-raising flour, into a bowl. And then I'll be adding the butter. You can either cube the butter or just break it up with your fingers so it's into small bits or lumps, so it mixes in with the flour better. And then just add a pinch of salt. And then what we need to do is rub the butter into the flour until you get fine breadcrumb type. Obviously, as the butter is going into the flour, keep it quite high. Don't be too, because if your hands get warm, it will make it too greasy. So as you can see, as I'm rubbing in with my fingers, it starts going like breadcrumbs. If you carry on doing this until it is all mixed in, and then it'll be time to add the water once you can see that the lumps are actually disappearing or going into the flour. Right, so as you can see now, it really is starting to go together. You can buy ready-made pastry. You can get it dry, or you can also buy blocks, rather at the fridges in shops or freezers. But the thing is we all have normally plain and self-raising flour in and butter, or even margarine will make it, so it can be actually a cheaper option to make your own pastry, and it tastes better. So this is just about ready to add the water. So all I'll do is I'll make a well in the middle, and if you just do, we do say it could be about 100 ml, but I would literally do tiny bits at a time, because the water really does start binding it, and with the margarine as well, so you don't want it too sticky. Just carry on. You can use a knife, palette knife or an ordinary knife, but I do it with my hands because then I can feel the texture of the pastry. So as you can see, this is starting to bind in nicely. Don't want to spend too long, because as I've said again, with you having the butter, you don't want your pastry too wet or warm. So now by the texture of it, it'll be soft, quite pliable. And again, don't spend too long with it. Just get it into a ball. bowl like that, and then we're going to wrap it in cling film, and you need to put in the fridge for about 15 minutes. So now we have the bowl. So we get off some cling film, wrap in cling film, and then it will go in the fridge for about 15 minutes. Right, so now I'm going to cook the chicken. I've put a tiny bit of water, probably about 100 ml in the pan, and I'll be cutting up my chicken. If you just like to cut it into cubes for your pie, so if you just cut it up, right, so now I'll put the chicken into the pan, as I've said, with the water so it doesn't burn. And then all we'll be doing is sealing it, cooking slowly. So now I've put it onto about 4, put it on 2 or 3 if you've got gas. Obviously keep it quite low to start off with to seal the chicken. It will take a few minutes to start sealing. So as you can see now, it's starting to seal, but what you need to do, it won't take very long, but you need to make sure it's sealed and it's going white, and then it's cooking right through. So just keep stirring it, because obviously you've got a lot of water in the pan, you don't want it to stick and dry. But it will take probably about 10-15 minutes in all, because it's got to seal and then it's got to cook through. Be careful not to overcook, because it will it'll dry and it'll start sticking, and it won't be very nice, because it's also going into the oven as well. You will feel by the texture of the chicken, it's where it was real soft, it will start going a bit harder, and the colour, as I've said, the colour will change, and it was also shrinking size. So now, as you can see, it's actually shrinking and it's starting to go firm. You can feel it with your spoon. Another way to check, obviously it's cooked through, use a knife or a fork, put inside and look inside and make sure that there's no kink. You will feel by the texture, you go around all of it and test maybe if you've got bigger pieces than others. You can often tell by the feel if you just give it a cut with a fork, a knife or a fork, and look inside to make sure that there's no kink and it's cooked nicely. So when the chicken's cooked, do your test like I said, and you can remove it off the heat. If you've got a sieve, you can do it with a sieve. I'm just doing it with a spoon because there's holes in it. Put your chicken in a pie dish, like the one I'm using, or similar, same sort of size. Or you could have it smaller if you didn't want to make as much. If it's only for a few people, you can actually cut your recipe down. So now I've took all the chicken out into the dish. I'll put that to a side. So you've got the stock left in there, and then I will be leaving it to Carl to make the stock.
So now I'm going to cook the sauce. So this is the chicken stock. All I'm going to do is let it heat up so it cooks up a little bit, so I haven't got as much stock, but I've got all the flavour. So I'm just going to dice the onion up into really small pieces. I'm doing that because I don't really want large cubes of onion, I just want the flavour of the onion, so it's hidden in the sauce. And it'll have a bit of texture and a bit of flavour. So that's all I want from the onion really. You don't have to go fast cutting it, just take your time, make sure you're safe. Keep your fingers away from the blade. So I'm doing this with a really sharp knife, and believe it or not, a sharp knife is safer than a blunt knife. As a blunt knife you'll struggle to cut it, and you'll have to grip it tighter and it'll slip and it could go in your fingers or your hand. So always try and keep your knives as sharp as possible. It's a lot safer to use a sharp knife. And just be sensible with it, take your time. Okay, that's about the size I want the onion. Just put that into the saucepan. And we'll get this to soften. Turn the heat up. So we've been heating this a couple of minutes now. So we're about there ready to add the butter first. So this is 4 ounces of butter going in. Let that melt down. Here's our milk. I'm just going to add half the milk at this present time. And get this simmering. So anybody can make a sauce. There's only really a couple of ingredients that you need, and it's your milk, your flour to thicken it, and your butter. A little bit of seasoning, and you can add whatever flavour you want to add. It's all, you know, you experiment a little bit. It's to your own tastes. Today we're using a tarragon sauce because it's something I've done before, and it's really nice. It perfectly complements chicken. Tarragon also complements fish. So now we've got our sauce bubbling, I'm going to add the flour. So it's roughly 2 tablespoons of flour, sieved in. We sieve it in to cut down the lumps. And we need to keep whisking this so we don't get a lumpy sauce. So I'm going to turn the heat up now, quite high, and that will enable us to cook all the little lumps out of the sauce, all the flour that's clumped of it. It's really important that we do that, get the sauce simmering. Keep whisking at the same time. If you leave it alone for a minute, it'll just turn into a sticky gooey mess. Let me know that. I'm going to add a bit more of the milk. Get that simmering again. Now I'm going to add the single cream. So instead of doing this tarragon sauce for your chicken pie, you could just use a simple gravy. But always remember, if you're doing a sauce for a pie, make it a little bit thicker than you would do if you're serving it. Because you're going to get all the juices coming out of the meat and the vegetables that you're putting in, and that'll water the sauce down, so it just needs to be a little bit thicker. So we've cooked all the flour out of the sauce. It's all a nice consistency now. So now I'm going to add just a little squirt of lemon juice, some pepper to season it, not a lot, a little bit of salt, again just a tiny bit. Bit more than a pinch of tarragon, but you don't need a lot because it's quite a powerful flavour. So about a teaspoonful is all I'd use. Give that a stir. Lovely aniseedy smell. A little bit of parsley to finish it off. Just a pinch. So you can see there from the consistency, it's like a slightly thicker than double cream, and that's what you want. Like I said before, the juices will come out the chicken and they will dilute that a little bit, but it'll be just right for when it's baked. So now we can cover the chicken with the sauce. It smells really nice. So I've cracked an egg into this little bowl. just giving it a swirl around with the brush, ready for when I egg wash the pastry, and that'll make it a nice golden brown colour. If you don't use egg wash, you can use milk, but you'll achieve a real nice golden colour with egg wash. If you haven't got a pastry brush, you can just pour it all on and just use your fingers to spread it around the pastry on, you know, obviously clean hands. To roll the pastry out, give your surface a light dusting of flour. And I always get the pastry into the shape resembling what I need to cover. So if I was doing something round, I'd roll it into a bowl. But I'm doing a rectangle here, so I'm going to do it into a rectangle shape. Then I'll start with the rolling pin, rolling it out. So just really light amounts of pressure. Give it a turn round. Really light amounts of pressure, keep it all even. Keep your surface underneath dusted with flour so it doesn't stick. And give the top a light dusting. So what we're looking for is the length slightly longer than the dish and the width slightly wider, because you have to go up the sides as well as the actual surface of it. So if we keep turning it, we'll keep the shape. If you need to put it on your rolling pin just to turn it, that's fine. Lift it up again. Stop it from sticking. Width there. So now I just use the rolling pin as a guide. So if I do that, end of the rolling pin to there where my finger is, and put it on the pastry, I know I've got well enough. Same thing across, rolling pin like that. Not forgetting we need extra for the sides. I'm just going to roll that out a little bit more. So once you've got your shape you need, you've got to let it rest for a couple of minutes, because if you don't, as soon as you put the pastry on there, it'll start to shrink back. So you need to roll it out, let it rest until it stops shrinking. You can put it on your rolling pin, lay it out, and trim it off. So we've let this pastry rest for a couple of minutes now, so all I'm going to do is fold it over the rolling pin, gently lift it up, and do it as quick as you can. And just lay it on top of the baking dish. Now this pastry might look thin, but it will double in thickness during the baking process. And just tuck it in to the corners. Lightly as possible, you don't want your finger going through it. Once you've done that, we can trim it off with a sharp knife. So I always find a really sharp knife without a serrated edge on it works best. So just apply pressure against the dish, making a downward motion onto the pastry. Just cut straight across there, it's got a bit of a lip on the handle. So round this way, really gently, go straight across and follow all the way around with a gentle downward motion. So we're trimming. I just give it a light press all the way around to keep it against the dish. Then we get our egg wash. Just pour it in like that. Make sure it's all covered. Now I'm just going to take a knife and score the top of the pastry very lightly, and that'll make it easier when you come to cut the pie up. So I'll go straight down the middle, onto the edges. I'll turn it on the side, and out of this pie I want six portions, which is what we use in the cafe. You can do as many portions you want at home, depending on what size of portion you want to serve and how many people are in your family. So just up the edges for a guard, so we'll get them all the same. So straight across. So we haven't gone through the pastry, we've just scored the top of it. Just put a couple of balls in to let any bubbling sauce escape out of there instead of coming out the sides. And that's that. All we've got to do now is put it in the oven. So the oven's all ready, it's heated up to 200 degrees. As you put it on the middle shelf, and we'll cook that for 1 hour and a quarter. So the pie is at 1 hour and a quarter now. I'm just going to take it out of the oven. And that looks lovely, a really nice golden colour. And the golden colour is a factor of the egg wash, and you can see from the edges of the pastry that it's doubled in thickness. Really nice crust there, and it's really light because we've used half self-raising and half plain. And that's it, job done.
I'd like to thank you for joining Unity Time. So I'll just say bye for now from Pauline, and hope to see you again very soon.
And bye from Carl. See you all soon.